Good afternoon, race fans. Welcome to Query and Schultz. You don't like my Tom Carnegie, Derek? It's May. It's May. It's race week. We are Indy 500 centric and NBA playoffs as well, right?
I will allow it. I think
thank you.
that you. Well, it's a 50-50 partnership. This show, for those that don't know.
Okay.
We can go back and look at the verbiage of the documents that I signed when we decided to relaunch this thing.
I
but
didn't
I'm pretty
sign
sure
anything.
Pretty sure it's a 50-50 thing.
I didn't sign anything. I could walk at any time.
Fine with your Tom Carnegie impersonation.
Okay.
I just think that you kind of beat it into the ground, as you do with most things. If you're a longtime listener or viewer of this show,
When
you
was
know
the last time I did a
that
Tom Carnegie
I never
impersonation?
ever would beat something into the ground on this show.
Yeah, okay.
Like, we keep things kind of fresh and moving, and we don't go back to
That's
old
right.
sticks
I
very
don't
much.
know. Seems
But
like you
you-
get transfixed.
With Carnegie, it's just constant.
It is race week, and we are set for the 105th running of the Indianapolis 500-mile race. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon to you. My name is Jake Query. That is Derek Schultz. It is the incredibly creatively and appropriately named, now somewhat charitably award-winning Query and Schultz program here on ISC Sports Network. There is plenty to talk about beyond just the Indianapolis 500. We have Pacers discussion. We have NBA playoffs discussion.
Yeah.
We have NFL draft discussion.
Golf.
NFL draft, actually 11 months away, right? So you always talk that. Golf discussion. Hefty Lefty, right? Isn't that his nickname?
Jared Lorenzen?
That is.
That's who you're talking about?
Jared Lorenzen, he's no longer with
Yeah,
us,
no,
right?
he passed, actually, tragically. He was a great guy, beloved guy for UK fans, but Hefty Lefty was one of his many nicknames.
But I thought, doesn't Phil Mickelson, isn't it Jim Rome that calls him Hefty Lefty? Is Jim Rome still doing a show? Do we know?
There was a time where Phil was tipping the scales a little bit.
Right.
But he looked, I thought, rather svelte. And what a story. I don't want to lead with that here. We will get to that, but it's a great story. It's definitely a relevant major champion to discuss.
This is how you know you're getting older, and the fact that Phil Mickelson winning a major was this big deal. And I'm like, wait a minute, didn't he just win one like 2 years ago?
Yeah.
No, it's been 8 years, Rake tells me. Oh, really? I'm 48.
To me, two of the coolest things in sports. One is when you're watching a peak athlete at his absolute apex, like what we saw with LeBron, probably with the Cavs championship around there, or Steph Curry here lately. I'm just using NBA examples. And the second one is when you're convinced that a window has closed for someone, and that window gets thrown back open.
They get a second win for a bit. Yeah.
And I think that's what happened here. Certainly with Tiger in the Masters a couple of years ago, and then that's what happened here again with Phil. No one expected him to ever be a major champion again, and for this to come out of nowhere was awesome.
And good timing, good segue there, Derek, in the fact that as we take a look at Phil Mickelson here, now we transition into discussion of the Indianapolis 500, and in that mold, here was Tony Kanaan, Elio Castroneves.
Yeah.
There were 5 drivers in the Fast 9 that were 40 and above. I mean, that's remarkable. And yet, the two spoilers in terms of the front row, Rinus VeeKay and Colton Herta, it's going to be exciting because there are any of a number of different drivers that could end up winning the Indy 500.
It's a great mix of old and new. And, we talk about Apex and things like that. This series right now, we say this every year, but it keeps climbing towards this. It's never been as competitive as it is now.
Right.
Certainly in the IndyCar series history. I mean, you might want to go back to the kart days if you want to do that. But then again, back in the 70s and 80s, there was a big gap between the haves and the have-nots. Ever since it's been a spec series like this, you don't really have that as much. But the competition is just absolutely incredible. And you're right, I was thrilled. Tony Kanaan, Jake, has a really fast car.
He does.
I think he's got, there have been Indy 500s here recently where you've gone into it being like, TK is a former champion, so I think he kind of has a chance. But knowing that everything would have to break the right way, I think that TK's got one of the 7 or 8 best chances of winning. I really believe that.
I'll tell you what, I would not sleep on Castroneves. Mm-hmm. I mean, Castroneves, Elio's car, he's got a good car. He's starting in a good spot. And even when Elio has not had great cars in the last handful of years, he still has been able to get himself up front. I think that 06 machine for Elio Castroneves is going to be up there as well.
And not to be like that guy that mentions the pole winner and one of the greatest to ever do it in Scott Dixon, but you have to wonder, Jake, is this finally the year that he breaks through back into victory lane again? Because we keep saying that.
It kind of feels that way, doesn't it?
And it felt like it at times in last year's race, and then a couple of years ago it felt like that before the crash. I think it's inevitable that Scott Dixon wins a second Indy 500, but I actually kind of love the allure of the fact that he's quote-unquote only won one, because it just shows how difficult this race really is to win.
And so many things, Derek, go into winning the race. I mean, you have to obviously be fast. You have to be tactical. You have to have clean pit stops. But you also just have to avoid luck. Mm-hmm. I mean, there have been years where Scott Dixon has been taken out of the race really at no fault of his own, just being wrong place, wrong time. That's part of what goes into it. I mean, I realize that a fifth of the races have been won by the pole sitter, which is more than any other position, but that means that 80% of them have not.
Yeah. I mean, there was a year, Jake, and you would know this year better than I would, because I know that the years run together for you as well. There was a year that I remember basically all of the Penske cars had pit issues. Like a fuel pump got caught in Will Power's car or something. Like all this terrible stuff happened to them in the pits, and it's Team Penske, right? So you expect all three of those guys always to be in contention, and they were just completely taken out of it because of stupid fluke pit mistakes.
So let's start towards the back and work our way up here on the storylines of qualifying for the 105th Indy 500. And we'll begin with Will Power. It was drama to know that Will Power had to go back out on bump day and prove and solidify himself in the field. But was it really drama? Because was there any question in your mind that, to me, it was a three-car race to not be bumped, and those three cars were Enerson, Kimball, and I thought DeSilvestro.
Yeah.
And credit to DeSilvestro for doing what needed to be done right out of the box and laying down good laps and then solidifying for that team. But you made a good point, Derek. Kimball's car just didn't have speed. Neither did R.C. Enerson.
No, it was way off. It wasn't a half a mile an hour off. It was 2 miles an hour off. It was way, way off. And that, I think, did zap a little bit of the drama. I was just happy to have bumping at all. So I have a very low bar for when it comes to bump day. I'm not expecting bump day to be like it was in 1995 all over again. You know what I mean? But you're right. I mean, pretty clearly, certainly for Karam and Power, you knew that they were going to find the speed, whereas it was really three cars for one spot. And good for DeSilvestro and good for that team to put that car in the show.
How about this? Sage Karam now starts in the 31st position for the third straight year.
I thought I heard something. He's started in row 11 now like 6 or 7 times.
He has started in row 11 4 times. That ties a record with, I believe, 3 other drivers. So, but I don't know that anybody has ever started in the same starting position 3 straight years, but he's doing it 31st.
Here's the thing about Sage. He's always quick. I know that he hasn't always
Sage is the name of
been,
the owl.
Well,
from WGU. I appreciate you mentioning
talking about
that.
a different Sage.
I know,
Sage
but WGU Indiana, they love Sage Karam. That's their favorite. Sage right here. There is Sage Karam right there, WGU.edu. And by the way, ambition never rests, and neither did the desire for Sage Karam or any of the 35 entries to get into the Indy 500. 33 are in, and Sage right there. Don't sleep on the fact starting 31st, because I'm telling you, if Sage Karam went out there on Sunday, had to get things done, got things done. If you want to get done your degree, what better place to do it than WGU.edu?
Kind of like Sage the Owl.
Indiana's largest online accredited university.
Sage the Owl swoops in, the wings are silent. Normally on race day, and this is always in the beginning because unfortunately for Sage, he's a very aggressive guy, so he finds issues sometimes.
Owls
but
are aggressive.
I can't tell you how many times I've looked up and been like, wait a minute, Sage is running top 15 right now?
Right.
And he's coming from, the back of the field. He charges up there right away. The problem is that he's rarely able to stay up there.
Do you know they have silent wings? I didn't know that. How do you know that?
Oh, yeah. When they swoop in, their wings are silent, so like field mice and other prey can't hear them. So that when they flap their wings, it's actually kind of nightmarish to think about. You cannot hear them until their talons are in your skull.
So you're saying they're stealth?
Very.
I don't know that that's accurate.
It's 100% true.
How do you know they're in the woods?
I know everything that there is about an owl.
But don't you ever hear them like
all owls?
Hoo, hoo.
Well, that's not their wings making that sound. You
I understand,
that, right?
but it's kind of irrelevant. The lack of volume of the wings is kind of offset by the very loud hooting.
Well listen. You've heard a lion roar, right? Mm-hmm. When a lion is waiting in the tall grass in, I don't know, Africa or something, chasing a gazelle, you think he's going, roar! No, he's waiting in the tall grass, and then he pounces.
He can't be chasing.
Silent assassin.
He's waiting in the grass. He's not chasing anything.
pounce and then chase. Have you ever watched like Planet Earth or anything like that? Do you know anything about nature?
That's a great song from Duran Duran.
Here's a good question. Do you know anything that is not related to open wheel racing or serial killers?
I know that
because that's really the only two things that you have.
Lake
in your
Baikal
arsenal.
in Russia is the deepest lake in the world.
Okay, that's weird and random, but thanks.
And Mikhail Aloshin
there's
is
a
the only
third thing.
Russian to run the Indianapolis 500, and there are actually the remains of 6 different victims of serial killers in the bottom of Lake Baikal.
Weird dude.
So, with willpower, the storyline for the 11th row of, how is willpower back there? Derek, I don't know. To me, it's not as big a concern because I think the Penske cars, what we have learned, there are 2 kinds of cars that you need to have for the race over the course of getting ready for and then running the race. The first is a qualifying car. You can set your car up to be really fast when it's by itself. And that's great in terms of your starting position. But then what happens once the race begins and you have the air of 32 other cars coming off? How is your car set up in that position? I don't worry about the Penske setups in terms of their race car versus their qualifying car. Now, they have 4 of them. So is it possible one of them is going to be completely out to lunch because they tried a setup that just didn't work? Yeah, it's entirely possible. But it's also more likely that someone like a Will Power is going to have a car that manages pretty well. Problem is he's at the back of the field, and so he's going to have to get through lesser stable cars perhaps to get himself to the front. But I'm not worried about the way the Penske's are going to run on race day. I'm really not, because a couple of years ago, Castroneva started 18th. Montoya started like 19th. They ended up 2nd and 6th, respectively. The cars were fine in the race itself. But Ed Carpenter, on the other hand, and I know that he has a runner-up finish, but we have seen cars from Carpenter, Piggott notably. Last year, VK, it was more of a pit stop issue, I think, that dropped him down. But, yes, they are fast as can be when they're out there on the track. But what happens to them in the race setup with the other cars? That's the challenge for them, right? I'm not worried about the Penske's, but are you?
No, because it's just like you said. I think we somewhat overrate qualifying, honestly. I mean, you saw Rossi had the tire puncture issue a couple of years ago, and he was driving a freaking rocket ship on race day. I mean, he had the best car. He didn't win the race.
Right.
He had the best car that day. And it was like video game stuff that he was doing. Now, I'm not saying that Power is going to do that, but I'm not really worried about that. You know, an interesting thing for qualifying, Jake, and just how these teams are going to react, and the reason why I have faith in Penske, normally I've seen cooler practice weeks and qualifying weekends transition into a very hot race day.
You're talking temperature cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
It looks like it's going to be the other way around, where you had an extremely hot qualifying weekend, and now I'm looking at like early to middle 70s. I don't know if it's changed as far as a race day forecast.
I try not to even.
I didn't want to mention the R word. I'm just talking.
You try not to
here.
even mention forecasts, right? Like, who knows? Sure. Yeah. Who knows? But there's a lot to be excited about, Derek, and part of that is because there are cars or drivers, if you were to break the field down, let's say, into thirds, front 4 rows, and then 5 through 8, and then 9 to 11. There's at least a driver-car combo in each section that you could look at and say, okay, I could see them making some noise. One of the interesting storylines, and I talked about this yesterday with Greg Rakestraw when we were doing after qualifying discussions about it. I'm going to be very curious, and I want you people to keep an eye on this. Juan Montoya, where does Montoya start? Like 20th, 21st, somewhere like that?
Like that, yeah. Somewhere in the middle.
Montoya has the hand speed, everything, and just the grit, for lack of or to use an overused sports phrase. But Montoya has the tenacity to get himself up front. The question is, at times with Montoya in the later part of his career here, does he want to take those risks? Montoya has the ability, I think, as much as anybody. But also Montoya, just being a guy that has nothing to prove, could say, you know what, this car's not great. I'm going to finish 21st. And I'm going to pull a Fernando Alonso from 9 months ago.
Yeah.
But if Montoya has made up, where's he starting? Do you have the grid
He's
there?
starting on the outside of row 8.
So he's starting, that would be what, 24th?
Yeah.
If Montoya makes up, let's say, 8 or 9 spots by the second pit stop, if he comes in for a second pit stop in the 15th or 16th spot, then now he can smell the blood a little bit. Montoya's going to go for it. If Montoya comes in and through the first 2 stints hasn't really made up any track position, I think he's the guy that you look at the end of the day and you go, we never even said Montoya's name. He's one to me that's going to be fascinating to watch.
You know what's fascinating? The row right behind him, and this has to be the most accomplished row 9 in Indianapolis 500 history, is Marco Pagano Bourdais. So we talk about Marco. Look, we could sit here all we want to talk about unfulfilled expectations, all that. Marco's experience is just as good as anybody else in the entire field. You've got a former champ in Pagano, and then you've got Bourdais, who pound for pound, as far as all-around drivers are concerned, is one of the 4 or 5 most talented guys behind the wheel.
You're right.
So, that's what, again, Jake, we talked about it off the jump. That's what makes this so interesting. In the middle of the field, you have Newgarden and Rahal and Andretti and Pagano and Bourdais, and they're just kind of mixed back there.
Who is in row 10?
Row 10 is Stephen Wilson, Chilton, and Dalton Kellett was the last one of that.
That row's interesting to me because Power's got to work his way through that row at some point.
I think, though, and look,
I think Chilton and Wilson both. Dalton Kellett last year exceeded my expectation. I thought he did a really good job when he wasn't on pace of being out of the way. He ran a good race before he knocked himself out, but he's still inexperienced. Chilton and Wilson, I think Wilson's got a car that's better than that. I think Stephen Wilson was probably disappointed with his qualifying spot. Max Chilton is at least smart enough to just keep clean, but still, they're going to be off the pace of Power early in the race, I'm telling you. So where does Power – where do you find your way around? Where do you find your way through? How do you go about it?
I think, though, that the difference is I remember this being a much bigger issue like 10 years ago when you had people that had no idea what they were doing in the back of the field, like Mario Moraes or like EJ Viso or Milko Duno, you know what I mean? Or, no offense, he's an unbelievable driver, and he didn't have to get out of the way, but Buddy Lazier's car was way, way off the pace.
What was the tweet you had one year that was the greatest tweet I've ever read? I openly laughed.
He needed a pit stop for his Toyota Tercel, I think was.
He said, Buddy Lazier has brought his Toyota.
Yeah. It was bad.
His Toyota Tercel to pit road.
Well, what was the year where they had the one engine that was way off?
Lotus.
Yes.
John Alesi
and a couple people had a couple people had the Lotuses, and they were like way
they
parked
them
behind.
after 10 laps for handling.
Yeah, that was a big problem.
Do you know that Buddy Lazier, by the way, great trivia question that Russ Thompson gave me last week. Buddy Lazier has raced against the second highest number of total opponents in his Indy 500 career, behind only AJ Foyt. Does that make sense?
Oh, as far as actual participants in the race?
Correct. The number of different
drivers.
Participants with which they have raced against.
Well, and look, I know that I made the Toyota Tercel joke, and I know that people poke fun at that era immediately after the split. Those winners, a lot of those winners aren't viewed in the same light as some of the others. Buddy Lazier was a fantastic race car driver.
His career is very underrated and underappreciated.
And a great dude. I mean, I really enjoyed having him with us
always
at the Firestone Garage.
Always good with us.
They kind of they were in Aspen, his family, before Aspen was a thing, and now it's a big thing.
No, he was always good to us.
Benefited from that financially tremendously.
What other storylines jumped out at you about qualifying?
The crowds. Right? They're saying, and they never actually give you attendance numbers, they're saying that this is the largest two-day crowd since the 100th running, so 2016. And I was out there on Sunday, and I thought it was great.
What would you estimate the crowd on Sunday?
It's impossible to know.
I was on the opposite end from where everybody was, so I can't really see, to be honest with you.
I would say that it would be similar to what it was probably Grand Prix Day, 20K.
Okay, that's not bad. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I've been out there before, and we didn't always do quals. We usually do practice and haven't always done quals, but I've been out there before where there weren't more than 5,000 or 6,000 people there.
Now,
I'm talking like late 2000s.
You first went to the race with your dad, or the track with your dad, right? Mm-hmm. And then didn't he have an issue with his car one year?
That was the Brickyard.
Okay.
Yeah, smashy on the window with the Brickyard. Never parking there again.
Right. Mm-hmm. Parking where?
Well, there's a church off of 16th Street, and I guess that they decided not to actually monitor the lot during the race because they were there to monitor it to collect your money.
Right.
And then they all decided to go to their seats and smashed in the back window.
So aside from getting the car broken into, your dad, were there any traditions about the race that your dad instilled in you that you now are carrying forward? Because your son now this was what, the second or third year he has been to the track?
He's been to the track. He was born in 2017, early in 2017. We didn't take him out as a little baby.
Right.
First took him out in 2018, 2019, not last year, obviously. So this was his third year out at the track.
Does he understand, like when you say we're going to the track, does he
Oh, yeah. Well, he says Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We have a big map in his room of the U.S. It's like a kid's map. And he always points, Daddy, we're at the Star, and that's where the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is. Okay. So he's really, really into it.
Now, is there anything that you have carried, a tradition that you've, carried on through your son that your dad did with you?
There weren't a lot of real traditions for my dad and me because the first time that I went to the race with my dad, I was 17. And
you didn't want to be there,
no.
right? No. Yeah.
And, this may surprise you because I'm such a cool, like, laid-back guy now. I was a jerk when I was 17. Like, I was a really terrible person. I just did not want to be around my parents at all. I wanted to just go drink on the golf course and smoke
at
Camels.
17?
And I didn't want to.
You were an imp.
What's that mean?
Okay.
An imp?
Yeah.
IMP?
Yes, that's correct.
Is that a slogan for something? I have no idea what that means. I was an imp?
Do you want to look it up?
What is an imp? Do I want that in my Google search history?
Am I the only person here that knows what an imp is?
I've never heard that term in my life. What is an imp? An imp. A small mischievous devil or sprite like the soda?
No. What's the definition?
Repair a damaged feather in the wing of a trained hawk by attaching part of a new feather. No, a small mischievous devil.
Yeah. So you were an imp.
I mean, I guess. I've never, that term hasn't been a thing probably since, the 1800s.
I don't know about that. Were you devil-like? Were you evil?
Actually, you know what? I have heard imp from Game of Thrones because Tyrion Lannister, Peter Dinklage's character, who you've called me, even though he's an amazing actor, so I've always taken it as a great compliment, and he's handsome, which is, me. They call him an imp.
Is he the one with the hairy feet?
No, that's Elijah Wood's character from Lord of the Rings.
That's who I've called you, I think.
Yeah, Frodo.
Self-proclaimed, yeah, Frodo. Mm-hmm. Okay, so anyway, so you were an imp when you were a kid. But
so I didn't really have any of those traditions. The tradition for us was watching it on TV, and my mom would basically guilt me into watching it with my dad because I was like, what's the big deal? It's 3 hours of cars going around in a circle. Like, I want to go to Stolman's barbecue or something, you know what I mean? And we'd sit inside on a beautiful day and watch that race. It wasn't really until college that I started kind of getting, the Coke Lot campouts and those sort of things. But we had seats in Tower Terrace for 30 years. And very often, none of us actually used those tickets, but my dad kept renewing them in case I ever wanted to go, which, means a lot to me now. There are a lot of things, I think I speak for all sons when I say this. There are a lot of things that your dad does early in your life and you don't appreciate at that point. And then later when you become, a dad or your dad's age, you're like, wow, that was really cool that my dad did that. Yeah. And that was one of those things that kind of stuck out to me in later years.
There's plenty to talk about over the course of the show today, and we have plenty to get to, right?
100%. NBA playoffs, Pacers season blows up, not in a good way, in a bad way.
Okay.
Remember, we had that 24-hour period where we're like, hey, they beat a terrible Charlotte team who was completely uninterested in being there. Maybe they'll have a chance. And then they got the brakes beaten off of them. So we'll talk about that offseason. Phil and that win in the PGA Championship and just a horrible thing. A happy thing that turned into a sad thing for me over the weekend. Involving some friends who, well, yes, they're still friends and they're technically the godparents of my son, but I'm starting to kind of struggle with that relationship based on a gift that they gave me, which is very similar to the gifts that you used to give me after IndyCar
back when I gave
trips.
you gifts.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we'll get to that. Plus, we have our features to get to as well, right?
We do. We'll get to all of those as well. Stick around. Okay. It's Corey and Schultz, ISC Sports Network.
It's here. The moment that will define you. So think of this moment as your moment. The one you've been waiting for. You were built for it. And so were we. WGU, the online university where ambition never rests.
Indiana dairy farmers provide us with safe, pure foods for our tables. A responsibility that takes intuition, resolve, and determination to make sure their milk is good for you and delicious to taste. Their connection with our community runs deep, passed down through the generations, ensuring that milk is always available at your store. It's not easy being a dairy farmer, but the rewards have special meaning when you can feed Indiana's families every single day. Learn more at winnersdrinkmilk.com.
At Bailey & Wood, we pride ourselves on our 5-star customer service. But at our core, we're a family. Family owned, and family to our customers, staff, and our community. From charity events to recognizing hometown heroes, we prioritize giving back to our communities that have always supported our growth. So let us help you get your dream home today.
You just saw their commercial. This portion of Corey and Schultz brought to you by our friends at Bailey and Wood Financial Group, BAWFG.com. Also, you can call 855-350-HOME. If you're looking to refi, certainly rates still low. I think they're closing in the threes at this point, and maybe in some cases, depending if you do a 15-year or 25-year or something like that, closing even lower than that. But if you head to BAWFG.com, you can go there for refi or just to get your approval to buy a new home, because you're going to have to go ahead and do that in this competitive market to make sure you've got everything all set.
Is there a W in the logo? I see the B, right, for Bailey?
I think it's just the B, right?
Is there a W somewhere in
No,
there?
I don't think so.
Are you sure? Sometimes these things are very subtle.
It's not like the Milwaukee Brewers logo, which took me forever to realize that it's an M and a B. I didn't know that until I was like 25.
How about the most mind-blown I have ever heard you about anything in the history of doing a show with you was when you learned there was a particular sports logo that on the air I mentioned what it was, and you're like, no, and then I mentioned what it was, and you're like, oh my goodness.
It changed my life. Yeah, the Atlanta Hawks logo.
Yes.
Right? I thought it was just like a Pac-Man, like the wings of a hawk and a little basketball. And it's actually the outline of a hawk's face.
Yes.
And now looking at it, I don't know
see
how
Yeah, you
I would
can't
have
see it
thought
the
that
other
this
way.
was a Pac-Man. It's
Yeah.
so stupid.
It's the side profile of a hawk.
Yeah, of course.
With his eye.
And I
and
feel like
his-
such an
and his
idiot.
beak. Yeah. It's pretty cool, though.
BAWFG.com. Mike Wood and his team, 13 Indiana locations to help you out at Bailey and Wood. They do a tremendous job, so go ahead and nip that in the bud, especially if you're entering this competitive housing market.
Is it possible that somebody is going to have to call Bailey and Wood because they are buying a new home in a few months and they find out it was actually the previous owner was Nate Bjorkgren?
Yeah, I sent this tweet after their 400-point loss to Washington, after they gave up 650 or however many they gave up to the Wizards like they did all year, that I don't really care what changes, and this may be a cop-out. You got to change something. And I think the biggest mistake that the Pacers could possibly make is to run this entire thing back and say, you know what, it was injuries. Wouldn't you agree? It went deeper than injuries this year. Like, this just was a group that didn't, and I know not all of them, Warren was never on the floor, right? And LeVert wasn't on the floor until late. So I know they didn't have a lot of a chance to actually click together. But the individual pieces, to me, just didn't seem to really flow and work together.
Of the personnel changes that have taken place with the Pacers, injuries, guys that missed time, Warren being out, the trade of Oladipo, Turner being out, Sabonis being come and go, Brogdon being come and go. Perhaps the most underrated change for the Pacers, Derek, was the loss of the defensive coaching of Dan Burke, quite frankly. And if the Pacers don't get somebody that can coach defense between now and whether that be a head coaching change or an assistant coaching change, whatever it might be, if the Pacers don't undergo a serious philosophical difference in terms of their defensive approach, then clean it out all the way together. And Nate Bjorkgren was, I think you can get 2 shots at a signature hire. Fred Glass did he get 2 shots at a signature hire?
Yeah, Crean and Archie.
Right.
He wasn't there for, obviously, the last change.
I don't know that Kevin Pritchard is going to make a head coaching change. I suspect he's going to. So he probably will get a chance at a second signature hire at the head coaching position, but he can't miss on the next one. And I don't think Kevin Pritchard's footing is or should be as firm within the Pacers front office as one would expect.
I haven't talked to anybody, and, I'm not saying that I have inside people, but people that are around the team. I haven't talked to anybody that wouldn't be surprised if Nate Bjorkgren was back. Most people believe that they're going to move on. It would be a shock if Kevin Pritchard were let go after this year, but you're right.
You're right.
I think that this was, remember a couple of weeks ago on the show, you said that Chris Ballard watershed moment was this draft class, and maybe we'll start finally questioning Chris Ballard if this goes south. I think the Bjorkgren, especially if he's one and done, being kind of a disaster, has opened Pritchard up to that. He's always going to have his detractors, the people that point out TJ Leaf or some of the other mistakes that he's made.
You point that out
It's
all
not
the time.
been perfect. Well, did you watch John Collins for the Hawks last night? You think the Pacers couldn't use somebody like that? He was the pick right after. It sucks that it ended up working out that way, and that was by far his worst mistake, far worse than a failed head coach, because guys fail as head coaches all the time in the NBA. You can,
but taking a guy as head coach who's never done it before was.
Yeah. Oh, he stuck his neck out.
Increases your risk.
Yeah, he stuck his neck out there for sure. And Bjorkgren did some good things. The Pacers' offensive philosophy was a lot more in tune with modern winning NBA basketball than the previous regimes, but they couldn't guard anybody. And, you can score more points. That's great. But if you give up a ton more, then
Let me tell you what.
you're robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Let me give you one of my far too philosophical deep reads, having nothing to do with other than just my own, is this a possibility? Kevin Pritchard was an executive in Portland. He had Greg Oden, and it didn't pan out, and who knows how differently things might have been in Portland had Greg Oden panned out. That was an injury issue, and I will defend 10 times out of 10 the decision to take Greg Oden over Kevin Durant. Totally get it. At that point, Kevin Pritchard in that year, Derek, was one of however many GMs there are in the league that would have taken Greg Oden number 1 overall. Anybody who says they wouldn't, revisionist history. Kevin Pritchard comes to Indiana. He's kind of handpicked by Larry Bird to come to Indiana, and he's working in Indiana, and he's working his way in the front office, and he's transitioning. He's serving in the transitional period between Larry Bird and then Donnie Walsh is the interim, and then back to Larry Bird, and eventually it's handed over to Kevin Pritchard. But he has those two there as advisors. Then, eventually, they both retire. And Larry Bird, I should take that back, is not retired, but he retreats to Florida and is more on the periphery. Mm-hmm. So now it suddenly is very clearly Kevin Pritchard at the steering wheel. Kevin Pritchard bided his time, respectfully so, to have complete autonomy without the obligatory having to run it past his two predecessors. If that situation had never presented itself, would Kevin Pritchard have not made a head coaching hire that was such an extreme leap of, this is my guy and I'm going out of left field here? If he didn't have to prove that he was the guy that is now in charge and the decisions are totally his, etc., if he didn't have that concern of almost overcompensating for the fact that he's now in charge, would he have gone out and taken his Tony Hugo?
I'm not going to pretend like we're best friends. I know that this is an ego-driven business. He does not strike me as somebody that would be really important to him.
That's fair.
I do think that he wanted – I think, Jake, what he wanted was a clear departure from McMillan or hiring another retread coach, and that's how you got Nate Bjorkgren.
I guess my point is, would he have been more likely to hire a retread coach or an NBA veteran recycled if he felt himself more firmly entrenched that this was his organization?
Or keep McMillan, right?
Right.
Because certainly that was hell, they extended him before the bubble. It wasn't until after they were like, oh, wait, that was a mistake. We didn't want to do that. Yeah, I think that's certainly possible. I'm rooting for him. I kind of made the joke with Rakestraw off the air that if Kevin Pritchard didn't have bad luck, he'd have no luck at all.
Right.
And look, it's, Crimea River, right? It's a results business. So you have to play the cards that you're dealt. I would argue that Pritchard hasn't been dealt the best hand. And I do wonder how much ownership plays into that, because clearly they want to keep a pretty tight pocketbook and they don't want to tiptoe up to the luxury tax.
He has made chicken salad out of two really bad situations with Paul George. He's done a lot of good things. Don't get me wrong.
Trades-wise, I think it's been stellar. The drafting has left a lot
fair.
to be desired.
That's fair.
Because even, Goga, I think has shown himself to be a future rotation player. Aaron Holiday, it just depends on which day you're asking
Aaron
me.
Holiday just hasn't been put in positions where he can truly show what he does.
Aaron Holiday's fine. I think that his ceiling is backup point guard probably.
That's probably right, yeah.
But when you're drafting there, all you want is somebody that's a rotational piece. The problem is he took Leaf in a draft with Anunoby and Collins and guys that have become, not number one type players, but certainly franchise pillar players. Yeah.
Look, knowing how to get good players is one thing. And Kevin Pritchard has done a very good job of going out through trades and turning pieces that could have been really bad into good players. Getting good players that mesh with one another and play well as a unit and become difficult to beat is another story. And that's the area where at times they've looked like they've had that cohesiveness. And I don't think it's a group of guys that dislikes each other. As a matter of fact, 2 years ago, you could tell it was their cohesion actually was probably their strong suit.
Yeah. And it's funny because you airdropped all those guys in, like Bogdanovich and Collison and Corey Joseph and the Oladipo Sabonis trade. You threw it all together and it worked. Like those guys, they looked like they had played together like the Paul George, David West, Hibbert teams that spent many years together.
Right.
And it doesn't always work that way. And I think that's what they kind of ran into here. But I'm not asking them to blow it up. They're not in a position to blow it up anyway. They've invested into most of this group. But I think you have to listen to trade overtures from everybody and decide, hey, you know what? Just to shake things up, do we want to part with one of these big pieces and see if this could work for us? I'm not saying sell everything off for draft capital. It depends on what teams are willing to pay. I am not more prone to moving on from someone than anyone else. I will say this. I don't think there's any chance LeVert gets moved. Everybody else, I would like to see what LeVert has with a fully healthy season. But everybody else to me, Warren in a contract year, Sabonis, Turner, Brogdon, all of those guys to me are movable.
Okay, what else do we have to get to here? You want to talk about Phil Mickelson, right?
We do, yeah. We should get to that. We've got our American Dairy Association Indiana Winners Drink Milk winner of the week. We have the Shops Biter Bull Bleep. Love HVACs, love that play. And I just wanted to talk some NBA playoffs in general because I know you were at the track all weekend. I really kind of invested myself in watching some of these games.
I mean, that's cool.
Yeah. It's been a while since I sat down and watched a bunch of first-round games.
I didn't realize until I was looking at scores. I'm like, wait a minute, the Knicks were in the playoffs?
Actually, speaking of the NBA playoffs, somebody that we both know had a great tweet that reminded me of something that you would send. And I think you'll be like, yes, this is exactly right. It's so stupid. That's why it reminded me of you. It's a really dumb tweet. So we'll come back with that. Actually, we'll come back exactly with that tweet next.
Something dumb reminded you of me.
Dumb tweets.
Thanks.
Please stick around.
Indiana Dairy Farm, long workdays stretch into more labor after sunset. A newborn calf needs watching, barn needs cleaning, tractor needs some handiwork for tomorrow's tasks. Just like in your own home, the day's chores are never done until the family beds down for the night. Dairy farmers and their families share the same dream with all of us, that what we all do is worthwhile. Bringing to market pure, safe, and healthy dairy foods is what they do, from Indiana's dairy families to ours every single day. Learn more at winnersdrinkmilk.com.
It's here. The moment that will define you. So think of this moment as your moment. The one you've been waiting for. You were built for it. And so were we. WGU, the online university where ambition never rests.
Your life is on the go. Now your viewing habits can be on the go. With the ISC Sports Network app, your team is at your fingertips. You can download years' worth of content from the ISC Sports Network library. High school, college, special events, weekly and monthly shows, wherever you find your favorite app. And you can always find out more information at iscsportsnetwork.com.
Welcome back to Query and Schultz, where Derek Schultz apparently spends his weekends looking at Twitter for tweets that he can then say are dumb and remind him of me.
You ready for it?
Sure.
It's from Joe Sheehan. Remember Joe?
Oh, yeah.
He was a weekly guest of ours.
Joe I liked.
Baseball guy.
Baseball fellow, right?
Yeah.
It was the football one I didn't like.
That Aaron Schatz.
Yeah, he was.
The relationship with Joe actually kind of bothered me because Joe and I were friends predating you. We're both East Coast guys and grew up Yankee fans. And then by the end of our radio show, it felt like you and Joe were better friends than he and I
He was
were.
cool. Joe and I get along well.
Well, you're the same,
Same
age,
age.
I think is what it was. But he had a tweet. Memphis is playing Utah. And he had a tweet last night. Shouldn't it be the Memphis Jazz versus the Utah Grizzlies? And I'm thinking to myself, that's such a Jake Query tweet, but he's right. I mean, if you're
That is
actually
pretty
talking
good.
about Jazz in Utah, I know obviously it was New Orleans and then they
Right.
moved there, but Jazz in Utah is the most mismatched mascot combo in all of American pro sports.
And Utah Grizzlies makes sense, right?
Yeah, there'd be bears
there-
out there in those mountains, right?
Yeah, I would think, yeah.
I hear it's beautiful. You've been there. You've been to all 50 states.
I've been to only southern Utah, though. I've not been
Okay.
to Salt Lake.
Well, southern Utah's like the desert, right? There's nothing out there.
Correct.
But I heard Salt Lake is very scenic and
I've heard the same.
gorgeous.
Now, you know
and
the
all
one
that.
that's interesting to me of teams that relocated their franchise and fell into a position where the city with their new city made better sense for their mascot name. The Rockets would be one
Yeah, Houston, we have a problem.
because they were the San Diego Rockets, and
most
then
people-
they moved to the NASA headquarters, and they're still the Rockets.
Most people must assume that the Houston
Correct.
Rockets have always been the Houston
I know,
Rockets.
and they were not. They were the San Diego Rockets. Okay, that would be one. The Lakers. I know there's not a lot of lakes in Los Angeles, but does the LA Lakers, right?
Yeah, it just flows. But you moved from Minneapolis. I mean,
I
that's
know,
what you
but
think of.
I know that.
think of
But I
lakes.
mean, I know Minneapolis, Minnesota is the land of 10,000 lakes, which I have a hard time believing that. By the way, you think there's really 10,000 lakes in
Oh,
Minnesota?
I
That's a lot of
believe it,
lakes.
yeah.
10,000 is a lot, Derek.
I mean, have you
I don't
seen in,
think so.
in Indiana what some people say is a lake?
Well-
Like, hey, we're going to a lake for a weekend, and you pull up, and it's like a ditch that somebody digged with brown water in it, and you're like, you serious, dude? Like people put boats in this thing?
Do you know how many 10,000 is? Oh, that's a lot of lakes.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's a big state.
but they've got to be factored in tributaries and stuff like that, right? There's no way.
no.
I
It's
mean, what are
only
they
lakes.
counting as a lake?
It's only
Retention
lakes.
ponds?
I bet Michigan's got almost that much, don't you think?
Well, Michigan's
10,000?
Great Lakes.
Yeah, but Michigan's got a bunch of tiny lakes as well.
Yeah, but not 10,000 of them. 10,000 is a lot of
All right,
lakes.
we've
I
already-
think it's an
we've
embellished
spent-
number.
We spent too much time.
Okay, I'm
they
just
stop
saying
it.
the Lakers though, it makes sense when they're but not 10,000 level. But LA Lakers makes sense. It sounds like it, you know what I mean?
Well, a lot of people have
Not a lot of Colts in Indianapolis. Not a lot of I mean, I know that the Pacers are actually named for horse racing, believe it or not. So maybe it makes sense that the Colts are Indianapolis Colts, but that's more a Maryland
A
thing.
lot of teams have moved over the years. Something that we've learned kind of with this pandemic, certainly with our house, even though it's always been about renovations and things like that, is people are looking around and they're saying, well, I don't want to move. I'm happy where I am, but we need a new kitchen.
Yeah.
We need a new bathroom.
That's where JTU Kitchens comes into play.
You have to say their name correctly. Or
Chateau
else,
Kitchens.
Yeah. Well, don't joke about it because they want to get their branding. They want to attach with our strong branding,
But people
their strong branding.
But sometimes
and
if
get that out
people
there.
want to look it up on the internet,
Yeah,
then they'll remember Chateau, but it's Chateau Kitchen.
it is. But just say Chateau. I want to make sure.
No,
You know, they're compensating us for all of this too. I want to make sure
I know,
that we
but
get the
I
actual.
want to make sure they're spelled correctly. I don't want.
Well, then just spell it out. But their name, I don't want people to call up Steven and be like, "Hey, is this Chateau Kitchens? I want you to come and, take down my cabinets."
Right.
Like that's Chateau.
Well, he would correct him.
It's very
He'd say, no, it's
classy.
Chateau.
And
No
they
question.
do a classy job.
No
We'll
question.
get all of that in post, Jordan, with Jake talking. So just me, just the audio from me.
Okay, yeah.
Jake's mouth can be moving, but no audio there. Chateau Kitchens and Home Remodeling is a premier provider of residential cabinetry and home remodeling services in central Indiana and the
Do
Indianapolis
you
area.
spend a lot of time in post?
They have their, well, unfortunately, all of this stuff goes to Jordan.
Okay.
You know, if
Would
you want
you
to send
say-
somebody a thank you card, you should send it
Would
to
you
Jordan.
say Jordan spends more time in post or you in your Chateau kitchen?
We spend a lot of time in our Chateau kitchen.
I mean, it's a nice kitchen.
They did this countertop thing. You know, we actually used to have a butler door, if you could believe it. It's a 1927 house. So when we moved in, we were like, oh my God, there's a butler door in here. So originally, we had some yahoos come in and take the wall down. This is before we knew what the hell we were doing. And they did like this archway that was horrible. It was like barely an arch. It started to arch and then it went like, nyeh, like that. And then Chateau came in and they wiped that whole thing out and then put in basically this peninsula island dealie where it's attached to the back wall. We'll actually get some pictures on here. It's attached to the wall and it's like a counter. So we have bar stools up there and that's where I sit all the time on my laptop and I tweet. So when you're thinking to yourself, oh man, I'm engaging with Schultz, a lot of times it's just me in my bathrobe sitting in the kitchen on that computer.
You know that a peninsula and an island are two totally different
Well,
things.
it's a peninsula, but it would categorize as an island, but it's attached to something. So it's a peninsula. But it's like a kitchen island,
peninsula-
except it's a peninsula.
Okay, can you walk all the way around it?
No.
The thing in
No.
your kitchen, can you walk all the way
No.
around? Okay,
You can
then
walk
that's not-
3/4 of the way around.
Then that's a peninsula.
Yes.
It's not an island.
It's a kitchen island peninsula. Yes.
No, it's a peninsula. You can't
It's a
have
kitchen island that is a peninsula.
No. A peninsula cannot. It's one or the other. There's no in between here. An island is a body of land that is surrounded by water. A peninsula is a body of land that extends into water but is connected to a larger mass of land.
Who's the person that had their
So,
kitchen remodeled by Chateau Kitchens? You or
I'm
me?
just telling you. I guarantee you, if you call Chateau
I don't
Kitchens
know.
and you say, "Do you have islands?" They say, "Yes." Do you have peninsulas? Yes, we have that as well. Do you have island peninsulas? No, it's one or the other.
I mean, there may be something I don't know here. Did you have renovations done in the 2-bedroom apartment where you live alone?
I did
Because I thought you had a
I did.
you had a rental company
I got
that's
a,
in
I
there.
got a
so
robot.
you're
vacuum
not in the
cleaner.
market for it. Follow them on Instagram at Chateau
have the
Kitchens. Also Facebook. You can see some before and after pictures. Just look up Chateau Kitchens, and they've got a beautiful showroom. if
Don't
you want
look
to
up
see,
their island peninsula.
what
offer.
they can do for you and a showroom. Get some ideas for whatever your project may be up on Carmel Drive, chateaukitchens.com. You want to talk PGA?
Sure.
We should.
Is that the Peninsula Golf Association?
How about this? This is, I was talking earlier in the show about how you thought that Phil Mickelson's window had closed. Do you know what his performance has been in majors since 2017? Maybe you don't because you seemed surprised that this was such
I
a
was
big deal.
stunned that it was so long.
Well,
ago,
he's
but didn't
50.
he just win-
He's the oldest PGA
That also-
major
that
champion
also
ever,
surprised me.
men or women. Now tied with Nick Faldo and Lee Trevino for 12th all-time in majors with his 6th.
How old was Seve Ballesteros?
He was up there too, wasn't he?
Chichi
for those?
Rodriguez. How old was he?
Jack was 46 when he
How
won
old-
his last
how old was-
Masters, I think.
I guess Fuzzy Zeller won his Masters early, right? He just was golfing later.
I think so.
Okay.
Major since 2017 for Phil. Obviously not counting the PGA. 22nd, cut, 36th, 48th, 24th, cut, 18th, 71st, 52nd, cut, 55th, 71st, cut, 21st. Wow. He hadn't even finished on the first page of the leaderboard since the 2016 British Open, where he was P2. So
That's amazing to me. It
Yeah.
just shows I'm getting older because I still think of him as being one of the best.
I think, generally speaking, 44, 45 is when it starts to go.
Did you think
When it comes to golf. Now, that may change because these guys are in a much different physical condition in their 20s and 30s now than they were 20 and 30 years ago.
I thought at one time he looked a lot like Hugh Grant.
Yeah, I think so, too. He's got great hair.
Listen, I don't know a lot about Phil Mickelson as a guy. He seems polarizing. I do know this. I know that my sister-in-law volunteered. What was the golf tournament that would have been at Crooked Stick like 2 years ago?
Oh, it's the BMW.
The BMW.
Yeah.
She has volunteered at the BMW and said actually that Phil Mickelson was among the coolest to the volunteers and the fans that were around and kids and things like that. Really cool guy.
I've heard some of that. I've heard some not so good things
I know-
about him,
that's what I
too.
mean. He's pretty
and I know
polarizing.
that he had the, what was it, like the insider. It was the stuff that Martha Stewart got hooked up
that's
into,
right.
right? The insider trading thing from
Yeah.
however long ago. I don't even remember the details around that, but I know that there was some stuff that
I liked
he
him.
may or may not have
I've
been
always
involved
liked
in.
him.
No, I always kind of rooted for Lefty.
You are right, though. I didn't see it because I was at the track.
But it's just, it wasn't even something that really he fluked into. He laid waste to the rest of the field. I mean, he was up 5 shots with, 6 or 7 to play. I shut it off. I came back to see his 18th hole, which was, did you see that? It was insane. I was
crowd, you mean?
I was worried about him because of the crowd.
Right.
And I guess they were jumping on Brooks Koepka and he hurt his knee or his surgically repaired knee got hurt. That was not. Look, I know everybody is celebrating and all that. I don't think you can just assume that any group of people, everybody in it, is not, are not going to cause you possible harm. I know that makes me sound alarmist or anything like that, but it made me really uncomfortable. Like some people were talking about COVID and all that stuff. Like I wasn't really worried about the COVID aspect of it. I was worried about just general physical safety aspect of it. So the organizers there, I think, really need to get that under control. Also, it makes me really uneasy. I know these are the best golfers in the world. When they're lining up for a shot and, Phil Mickelson standing like right here, lining up for a shot, and here's a dude that's basically over his tee like right here. And if it's me teeing off, like that guy's not going to have an eye anymore because I'm just going to slice it right into his eyeball. Whereas all these guys hit straight,
That
so
would
it's
be
not
a
as
skill
big of
set
a
right
problem.
there.
Yeah.
My only thing with majors.
We need to get like a studio in here like the Fox football guys have where we have a big board and we can like act out some of these things.
Can we do the touchscreen deal?
We'll have to have Chateau come in and see if they can renovate studios as well and knock down a couple of the walls. Do a peninsula right here.
Yeah.
And
a
make it
peninsula or
real
an
nice.
island? Which one would it
An
be?
island peninsula.
Yeah, those. It's one or the other. It's an island or it's a peninsula. When I watch majors, I'm so tired of. Are we still in the whole? It's in the hole.
Yeah, mashed potatoes.
Is that stuff still going on?
Yeah, the raucous golf crowd thing is. I think that's why you
guys
saw
are
the
the
scene that you
worst.
saw at 18. Now I'm not asking it to be
Those
all
guys are the worst. Get
all
a
buttoned
life.
up and all elitist, which is what golf has been for so many generations. But
Is it May?
it
yet?
would be
Yes,
nice
it
if
is.
they
Thank
toned
you.
it down a little bit.
A little bit.
Tone it down
Not
a little bit. Like don't jump on anybody.
I'm thirsty, Derek. You ready for some milk?
Let's do. We're gonna do that next. Also, love that play right
Yep.
now.
Okay.
Actually, from our friends at Love Heating and Cooling, love-hvac.com, 353-2141. It's hot. If you're having
And you
AC
need a pool.
problems,
Oh, I'm sorry.
that's a different
That's
sponsor that's unrelated to the show.
okay.
We'll get that in post.
Yeah,
3, 2, 1. Love-hvac.com, 353-2141. If you're having problems with your AC, you probably know it, especially after the weekend that we just had. Give our friends Chris and John Love and the rest of their
best.
crew a call.
Been around, by the way, since 1920. So over 100 years now of taking care of Indianapolis, making sure that you are cool in the summer, you are warm in the winter, and doing it with a great product, great price, integrity, and, of course, 24-hour on-call maintenance. Derek, are you going to go with Phil Mickelson? Because I have actually my own nominee for Love That Play. But
I
you go
definitely
ahead.
love that play.
Okay?
Yeah.
You go first.
And this pains me because I think if you're a longtime listener or viewer of this show, you knew that I grew up a Knicks fan, and I was obsessed like just a rabid Knicks fan. And I don't know what year it was. I just kind of gradually checked out on the Knicks after years and years of them being in the basement and poorly run, and they're still kind of poorly run, but they're in the playoffs this year. I watched every second of their game against the Hawks, and it was an amazing atmosphere. Like hearing the Madison Square Garden defense, Oregon,
What was the crowd?
was cool. 13,000.
Wow.
So it was
okay.
a max. They actually sold out game 1 and game 2. And it was a really good basketball game, back and forth and hitting big shots. Trae Young, who's one of the most gifted offensive players in the game today, just did what he
what do you
does.
think
Made a
tickets
great
are going for?
hit that floater, which has become, I think, basically his signature shot. Shushed the crowd,
I'm
which
gonna look.
I love stuff like that.
What
Becoming
would you
the villain.
guess, Derek, tickets are going for at the Garden for a game right now?
Oh, God. I don't even know. Into the thousands, probably.
Just to get in the door, you think?
Yeah. I mean, they're completely sold out, so just that alone puts a premium probably on the price. And Knicks tickets, I went to a Knicks T-Wolves game that one year that they were good, 2013, one of the last years we went back to Connecticut to see my folks, and we took the train, and my wife, well, then girlfriend, and I went in to see it, and those tickets were like $250 a pop.
I'm trying to
and
find
we didn't sit that close.
trying to find the app on here that tells me ticket prices, and I can't even find it.
You can't go to StubHub?
That's what I'm trying to do, but I can't find the app.
I have StubHub on here somewhere.
You do? Well, look
Yeah.
it up.
Well, why don't I do it during the break or something? Because this is bad TV to have us both be on our phones.
Should
like
we take this out? We can
it
get
through.
this.
Trae Young game winner. That's my love that play. Even though I didn't love it, but it was a terrific play.
Mine is going to be, and oftentimes we just do one of them, but I think a worthy love that play. was just simply the way in which Charlie Kimball handled being bumped out of the Indianapolis 500 when he was being interviewed at the Speedway right after he got out of the car. And he said, and I'm paraphrasing, but this is pretty close to the quote, race cars are the heart of this place, but the fans are the soul. And in August, it was soulless. And it is always a privilege and an honor just to be able to come back to this place. And Scott Dixon also said, this place owes me nothing. But Charlie Kimball, I thought, handled it so well. And then to send a tweet to Beth Peretta talking about Simona Di Silvestro getting into the field, which kept Charlie Kimball out, and saying, my daughter and I will be watching and rooting for you. I just thought, home run to Charlie Kimball, who is now Indianapolis' own as a resident here, and the way he handled the whole situation. I think he made a lot of fans through that.
Yeah, for sure. And you feel for him. It's crushing to have to wait now another year. Not as bad as I thought. $300 to get in the door.
It's not bad.
No. Now,
I mean, it's a lot of money.
Close,
but
it's more expensive, but $300. There's actually row 7 seats for $513. That's not terrible. Playoff pricing. I mean, it is the first round, I guess, but
still, it's pretty cool.
I thought they'd be more than that.
The Garden's pretty cool.
Yeah,
no question about it.
And you'll probably have just as many Knicks fans in the crowd in Atlanta.
Yeah, you're right. You're right about that. I just make the drive down. If you're from New York, it's probably easier than going to the Garden.
It's such a transient city, and there's really not, I have friends that are from there that are big Atlanta sports fans, but let's face it, it's one of really they've earned that reputation of being not a great fan following town.
Right. Okay, milk to get to next.
Let's do it.
Good. I'm thirsty.
Me too. Rake's got to come in here and pour our glasses for us.
That's right.
Look at me. I'm all organized. I got the milk facts right here. I've got info. And
American Dairy Association of Indiana and our milk toast, our winner of the week, and as well, Buy It or Bull Schultz next. Query and Schultz rolls on.
It's here. The moment that will define you. So think of this moment as your moment. The one you've been waiting for. You were built for it. And so were we. WGU, the online university where ambition never rests.
Indiana dairy farmers provide us with safe, pure foods for our tables. A responsibility that takes intuition, resolve, and determination to make sure their milk is good for you and delicious to taste. Their connection with our community runs deep, passed down through the generations, ensuring that milk is always available at your store. It's not easy being a dairy farmer, but the rewards have special meaning when you can feed Indiana's families every single day. Learn more at winnersdrinkmilk.com.
At Bailey & Wood, we pride ourselves on our 5-star customer service. But at our core, we're a family. Family owned, and family to our customers, staff, and our community. From charity events to recognizing hometown heroes, we prioritize giving back to our communities that have always supported our growth. So let us help you get your dream home today.
Back here on Query and Schultz, and we are once again thrilled that this is the week where we will be doing the American Dairy Association of Indiana Fastest Rookie Luncheon for the second straight year. It is the 47th annual event for honoring the fastest rookie qualifier in the field of 33 for the Indianapolis 500-mile race. We also, each and every week on this program, do our Winners Drink Milk Winner of the Week, where we select somebody that we simply raise a glass of ice cold milk. I go for chocolate milk. Now, for the 33 drivers in the field of 33 in the Indianapolis 500, that's a little bit redundant, but they are given the option, 2% whole milk or skim milk. Those are the options they are given, although I do think that if there's a lactose intolerance, they can check that off. I don't know that anybody does. Ed Carpenter, James Hinchcliffe routinely request buttermilk, but I think whole milk is what they would be given if they were to win the Indianapolis 500-mile race. Derek, I'm enjoying the chocolate milk, which means I'm enjoying the equivalency from a health and nutrition standpoint of what?
Oh, the milk facts, yes. Let me
what
make
have you
sure
done
I
this
have
like-
those.
We've done this like 40 times now.
Sorry, I didn't know. That was a little impromptu. Like, I didn't know you were going to go right there. I thought
The whole show
thought
is
you had
impromptu.
More, thought you had more to say.
I've never scripted anything in my life.
I have a whole script right here.
I'm sure
Keep
you do.
everything organized. 1 8-ounce serving of low-fat chocolate milk. There's actually more than 8 ounces in there, but still, hey, the more the merrier. As much calcium as 10 cups of raw spinach, as much potassium as a banana, and as much vitamin A as 2 boiled eggs. Winnersdrinkmilk.com if you want to find your own milk facts. And couldn't be more excited to be part of that fastest rookie luncheon. Once again, we're taping this right now on Monday. Technically, it's tomorrow. We just did a rehearsal this morning.
Derek, I'm going to give it to, just because this is exactly what we're going to be doing at the luncheon. Because they, too, will be honoring him, I will say my winner of the week from the American Dairy Association of Indiana this week goes to none other than the driver of car number 51, qualifying at over 230 miles an hour, the fastest rookie in the field, only 2 this year in the field. Scott McLaughlin's driving for Team Penske, and you thought that was going to be a pretty stout horse. But grandson of Emerson Fittipaldi, I'm going to go with Pietro Fittipaldi, who we will be toasting tomorrow.
Good for Pietro. We're going to be hanging with him tomorrow. I actually have to text P and just kind of Pietro.
You have to text him.
Well, yeah. But just call him, his friends call him P.
Okay, sure.
And kind of get on the same page for tomorrow to see what we've got going on. A lot of directions you can go in. Phil Mickelson, obviously, would be kind of a no-brainer. Scott Dixon, now a 4th pole for the Indianapolis 500, would be way up there too. But I'm actually going to go off the beaten path a little bit here. How about Memphis? They play their way in, right? Traditionally, they would not have been included in the playoffs, but they play their way in, beating Steph Curry and the Warriors. And Steph at his absolute apex right now. It's a nice group of talent that I'm really excited to see kind of grow together, but led by a guy that is going to be a franchise player. I think it's very clear and obvious in Ja Morant, who's been fantastic.
Do you remember going into the draft, and I want you to tell me, critique this statement, because I think I'm probably going to be proven wrong. I remember saying if I had the number 1 overall pick in the draft, I would have taken Ja Morant over Zion Williamson.
I don't remember that. I don't think if you did say that, you weren't alone there. It was clearly originally it was a top 3, and R.J. Barrett included in that, who's actually had a nice sophomore
he's a good
season and been
player.
a good player, but is clearly a level below those 2 other guys. You know, Zion's been fantastic too. I think the feeling was there was a lot more concern about Zion's bust potential because of of his body, than Ja's. I think most people knew that Ja Morant's floor was probably higher than what Zion's floor was going to be, but both of those guys have limitless ceilings.
Zion Williamson's
limitless.
Pretty electric.
I mean, he's going to be an All-NBA player this year, but Ja Morant, when it's all said and done, will be on that level too, unquestionably.
So Ja Morant's yours?
Yeah.
And the Memphis Grizzlies?
And I've been, these NBA playoffs have been pretty good so far. The Bucks and Heat in their series, I think, is very interesting. This Knicks-Hawks series, just because it's kind of a coin flip. The Lakers and Suns. The Lakers are actually a Vegas favorite, even though they lost game 1.
Another one that's interesting is Boston, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what's going to happen with Boston?
I think, coming off of the Jaylen Brown injury, I think it's going to be really, really tough for them.
Big Jaylen Brown fan.
Yeah. I mean, another guy that's really ascended here, and I think we knew that he was really good, is Jason Tatum.
Really good.
Who's become
really good
an
player.
Excellent star player.
But you get the impression maybe it's going to have to be one of those 2 guys that you build around.
Yeah, I think the problem for Boston is that I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on the Celtics or anything like that. I think the problem for them was they missed their window. When you've got an opportunity to strike, you got to strike.
Right.
And they were hell-bent on keeping all their draft
they
capital.
knocked on the door,
on
the door,
And
yep.
There were moves out there for them to make where they could have made a big splash. Toronto went for it. That Kawhi thing could have blown up. They could have easily lost to the Sixers in the second round, and everybody talks about how, they're out of the playoffs now, about how, well, it didn't work, and they got a ring out of it. So, when it's time to go for it, you got to go for it.
Yeah.
And they didn't do that.
Fair point. You ready for Bite of the Bull, Schultz?
Yep.
All right, brought to you by the Shop Indy. The Shop Indy, by the way, with 2 locations, 920 Broad Ripple Avenue, which is right next to Union Jack in Broad Ripple, or in Clay Terrace. And, of course, you don't even have to leave your house to go to theshopindy.com. And, of course, you're talking about nostalgic T-shirts of a wonderful nature, whether it be pop culture in Indianapolis, places that you used to go to as a kid that you love and you still want to tip your cap to, or things like the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Month of May, perfect time. Go in before you go to the race and get your Indianapolis 500-mile race shirt. They have Is It May Yet? They have Kiss the Bricks. They have old school logos like the 75th running from 91, all at the Shop Indy. Derek makes a statement. I say whether it is true, I buy it, or it's bull Schultz.
Well, yeah, we're doing that next.
No, we're doing it right now. We're in the last segment.
No, we always break and then we do
No,
buy
I
or bull
teased
bleep.
both segments to wrap up the show. We're in the last segment of the program.
Jordan, don't we have another break that we have to get to?
No.
No? Are we already done with the show? It feels like we're like 10 minutes in.
This is, again, all off the cuff.
Yeah?
You get your scripts there.
I
They're
don't
all
know. Maybe
butchered.
I'm just off today.
I think you
I
are.
feel like, well, it flies by because everybody's happy. You guys are having fun listening to it and watching it, obviously. So it flies by for the viewer or for the listener as well.
It's very smooth.
Yeah, let me get, actually, Bite or Bull Bleep's not in my folder. That's on my computer here.
What are we doing here?
All
are
right,
we doing a live show?
You already said the point where I say a statement and then we go back and forth.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, I
wanted to
did
make
the whole rundown.
Well, this threw me off here.
Okay.
Statement 1, the Indy 500 crowd will reach the 135,000 capacity. Buy it or Bull Bleep?
I would have said bull Schultz until I saw the crowds for Fast Friday and into qualifying, and I will now say I buy it. Also, the forecast looks great, and I think that people did a good job at the track of wearing their mask and understanding where they had to wear it through the Pagoda Plaza, and then once they got in their seats and they're eating and drinking, you get a little bit of liberty. I will buy it.
Yeah, I'll buy it too. And I'm like you. I was real doubtful. I think I said something like everybody that wants to go to the race will get to go to the race. I think they'll very easily reach that 135,000 mark, especially seeing the crowds up. And just the general mood, I mean, it reminded me a lot of 2016. It just felt like it was like this celebratory gathering of everybody. You know what I mean? Where people were really happy. Like, I don't know about you, but when I walked, maybe not so much for you because you did last year's race, even though it was empty. When I walked past the Firestone garage, first off, I got sad because of the radio show. But secondly, it felt like it had been 2 years since I had been there. Like it really set in. Wow, this has been a long time, and I missed it. Statement 2, the Celtics will fire Brad Stevens. Buy it or Bull Bleep?
I buy it. I think, well, a lot of that depends on Danny Ainge. Mm-hmm. I could see Danny Ainge sticking around with him, but we're assuming if they get bounced in the first round, right?
Yeah, because I think he might be safe no matter what.
I don't think he will be. Well, I think Brad Stevens, if the Celtics sever ties with him, will take a year off, and it will be another year before he returns in coaching. Yes, I believe that this would be, if they were to be bounced, I believe that it is his final year in Boston.
I'm going to say Bull Bleep. I think that they keep him at least for another year. Okay. But I wouldn't be surprised at all, Jake. A lot of times people are like, well, you got fired because you did a bad job. No, sometimes coaches just get fired because they just feel like it's time. Nate McMillan didn't do a bad job. It was time to move on. And I wonder if the Celtics, 8 years is forever in the NBA for him to be a head coach, which is crazy to think that it's been since the summer of 2013. And maybe they felt like they just wanted a new voice. So, sorry, that was a Larry Bird term, wasn't it? We needed a new voice.
It was actually.
So I'm going to say Bull Bleep. I don't think that they fired him, but, to hedge, I wouldn't be surprised. Statement 3, unwritten rules in baseball are the dumbest thing ever. Buy it or Bull Bleep?
I buy that. I get it to some extent, but I mean, it's kind of like the qualifying rules for the Indy 500, right? Like if you've got to start over-explaining it a million times to people and debating it, it's a little much.
Here's my problem with it is that, it's so offensive for somebody to swing at a 3-0 pitch or to bat flip. So the adult response is, let me throw this rock 95 miles an hour at this person in their next at bat.
Right.
Like you're saying one thing is immature and unacceptable, but the other thing is okay. Like that
rule, Derek.
That's what has always bothered me about this. I think if we really need to get rid of something in baseball, we have to get rid of intentionally throwing at guys. You saw what happened with the guy that got hit in the face with the Mets. Why am I spacing on his name?
You're missing tough guy baseball.
He got hit in the face, and it was unintentional.
I know.
And it shattered his face. I mean he looked like he was in a car accident when they showed him in the press conference the next day.
Tough guy baseball.
I hate it. I hate it.
It's old school.
I don't think you should be
soft.
allowed to do, and it's the same thing, and people are going to get mad at me about this.
A ribbon for everybody?
Because hockey fans always get mad about this.
Participation trophies?
I don't think you should be allowed to fist fight either. I don't think you should be able to do anything in sports that you wouldn't be able to do on a sidewalk, just walking down the sidewalk on the street. And to me, like, that they just let people duke it out and fight each other, and that you throw 95-mile-an-hour hard objects at people, to me, is completely unacceptable.
I just think you're soft.
You can say that. I mean, people have said that before when I've railed against this.
Did you give out trophies to everybody at the Wiffle Ball League?
I mean, no, we didn't, actually. Yeah.
I'm surprised that you're this soft, considering you didn't grow up in the participation trophy world.
My views have evolved and changed over the years.
Okay.
I just think it's...
But no, the unwritten rules are a little tired.
Well,
I mean, it's just constant.
Respecting the game. Dude, you've got a position player in there throwing 45 miles an hour. You know, that a pitch gets launched to outer space. Too bad. If you're so mad about the sanctity of the game, throw a pitcher out there, not a position player.
That's fair.
What the hell's wrong with you?
That's fair.
And then you throw at him. I mean, my God, what are we doing here? Well, you never played at a high level. You're right. I mean, I was if never playing at a high level is a Triple Crown winner and an MVP of my wiffle ball league that I owned and operated. Yeah, I guess if that's not high level enough for
owned
you.
and operated. There was money involved.
Well, I started it.
Yeah.
So
what did you own?
Well, I drafted the original papers for the league. So the Trumbull Wiffle Ball League there was a document that I prepared with the organizing document of the Trumbull Wiffle Ball League with the rules and edicts and all of that. And then I formed the league. We had agreements with the 4 teams. It was year-to-year contracts because we never knew when my parents were going to kick everybody out.
How old were you when this started?
The first idea of the Trumbull Wiffle Ball League came to me when I was 13. It was organized when I was 16.
How did you have all these ideas and innovations when you were a kid, and yet you didn't end up going to, like, Harvard? You channeled it for what? A couple of baseball card sales? And
channeled it to where I am today.
Impressing chicks in the dorms with talking to them about your wiffle ball league?
I can send you my LinkedIn page if you want, but I think I've done pretty well.
You've actually sent it to me 16 times since we were laid off.
Well, I needed that letter of recommendation that you refused to write for me, so thanks.
That is correct.
One other thing, and I teased this earlier in the show, just to wrap up here. Did I say buy it or bowl bleep for the last one?
What do you mean?
Oh, unwritten rules in baseball. I think it's implied that I meant, yes, buy it. Crystal and Jeff Smock, you've met them, right? Jeff Smock is the head coach at Lebanon football, and they're one of my best friends, and Crystal's one of my wife's best friends, and
that's where the
Buffet
friends. King is, right?
Yes, up in Lebanon. They're actually a proud sponsor of Lebanon Tiger football. Godparents of my son. I hadn't seen them in a couple of months. We were all vaccinated, so we finally kind of did like this past weekend was the first real gathering that we've had. We had 8 people,
right?
At Rob Doty's house, the Hugger.
Yeah, the Hugger,
yeah. Rob Doty. He and his wife Allie recently came back to
Bros
America.
Don't shake hands; they hug.
And they bought a new house, a really cool house.
Did he hug you?
Yeah, he did.
Okay.
We're all vaccinated, so we felt like we were good with it, and it was outside. And they brought me what was supposed to be a gift, and I was like, "Oh, this is great." They kind of missed my birthday. Smock didn't send me a text that day, and I remember when you don't send me a text on my birthday. And I unwrapped it, and it was that GD urinal trough shirt.
Oh, those are
from
those
IMS.
are fun. Those are great. Yeah,
I was supposed to bring it in here in
where is
studio.
it?
It's in my backpack
Those
in the
are
other
fun.
room. But I'm going to donate it. So
to who?
Well, to somebody that needs a shirt.
The only complaint I had about the trough shirt is that's the on it is the newer version of the trough. It needed to be the older version to be truly authentic.
The other complaint was that it wasn't a darker yellow, like a dehydrated urine yellow color. But I didn't want to go there with that. Oh, here, Rakestraw's got it right here. Good toss. Yeah, so here it is.
Did you just say a dehydrated urine yellow?
Well, yeah, when you're in like turn 4 and you're slamming beers all day and it's hot, like sometimes that urine will be more like a brown than a yellow, which is bad. You guys should hydrate when you're doing that, but yeah.
Okay. Are you going to wear that to the Coke Lot to your little camping trip you do?
No, we're not doing. Well, they're actually doing the camp out, but I'm.
Okay.
I have bad feelings from the shirt, so I'm not going to join them.
Lastly, Derek, wrap up. Last 10 seconds here. 3 drivers that are going to win. Go ahead. And you can't say Scott Dixon. He is clearly the favorite.
Okay, so no Dixon? Yeah. Because Dixon would have been one of my 3.
He's clearly the favorite.
Rossi, Kanan. Oh, God, a third one. You know what? This is a rooting interest thing, and his star is ascending, and I really do think it's not outlandish to think that he could do it in his second time, but Colton Herta would be my other one.
Colton Herta would be the
or
first.
Actually, this would be his third star.
The first
right?
in 21 years to win from position 2, but I can't disagree with you. I love Rossi's chances. Just to not
Rossi's
double
gonna
up.
be my 3 every year.
Okay, to not double up with yours, if I had to go with 3 that you did not say, and Dixon is not in that mix. Castroneves, Rahal, Newgarden.
Newgarden's one that we haven't really talked about at all. So this would be interesting to see him come up there. And he's had no luck at that place, it feels like.
All right, we'll talk about it next week. Sound good?
Sounds good. Thanks
All
to
right.
our crew, Jake Morris, Jordan Shue, Greg Rakestraw. For Jake Query, I'm Derek Schultz. We will see you next time. Query and Schultz, ISC Sports Network.
Indiana Dairy Farm, long workdays stretch into more labor after sunset. A newborn calf needs watching. Barn needs cleaning. Tractor needs some handiwork for tomorrow's tasks. Just like in your own home, the day's chores are never done until the family beds down for the night. Dairy farmers and their families share the same dream with all of us, that what we all do is worthwhile. Bringing to market pure, safe, and healthy dairy foods is what they do. From Indiana's dairy families to ours every single day. Learn more at winnersdrinkmilk.com.
It's here. The moment that will define you. So think of this moment as your moment. The one you've been waiting for. You were built for it. And so were we. WGU, the online university where ambition never rests.
You can't get enough of them.
You can't get enough of us. Good one, J-Man.
This is the worst scandal. This might
This
even
is
be
worse than steroid. Not so fast.
Are you going to watch the XFL?
I'll probably watch a little bit of it.
You want to go through and pick some games?
No, I don't. No, I don't. I really don't. Oh, my God.
We are ripping fast today.
And how hard can it be, right?
These are now selling for about $3,500. So we're back to our old ways of pulling rocks.
Act like idiots on camera, open cards, and talk about the hobby.
At an Indiana dairy farm, long workdays stretch into more labor after sunset. A newborn calf needs watching. Barn needs cleaning. Tractor needs some handiwork for tomorrow's tasks. Just like in your own home, the day's chores are never done until the family beds down for the night. Dairy farmers and their families share the same dream with all of us, that what we all do is worthwhile. Bringing to market pure, safe, and healthy dairy foods is what they do. From Indiana's dairy families to ours every single day. Learn more at winnersdrinkmilk.com.
At Bailey & Wood, we pride ourselves on our 5-star customer service. But at our core, we're a family. Family owned, and family to our customers, staff, and our community. From charity events to recognizing hometown heroes, we prioritize giving back to our communities that have always supported our growth. So let us help you get your dream home today.
It's here. The moment that will define you. So think of this moment as your moment. The one you've been waiting for. You were built for it. And so were we. WGU, the online university where ambition never rests.
You're watching Query and Schultz on the ISC Sports Network.
At Bailey & Wood, we pride ourselves on our 5-star customer service. But at our core, we're a family. Family owned, and family to our customers, staff, and our community. From charity events to recognizing hometown heroes, we prioritize giving back to our communities that have always supported our growth. So let us help you get your dream home today.
Your life is on the go. Now your viewing habits can be on the go. With the ISC Sports Network app, Your team is at your fingertips. You can download years' worth of content from the ISC Sports Network library. High school, college, special events, weekly and monthly shows, wherever you find your favorite app. And you can always find out more information at iscsportsnetwork.com.